Hi everybody, today I'm going to talk to you about Antarctica. Okay, now what I'm actually going to do is that somebody sent me a video made by two gentlemen. I won't give you their names, but you probably know at least one of them, if not both of them. One was asking questions to the second gentleman who claimed to have knowledge of Antarctica and so on, and I'm not doubting what they're saying, but I used the questions that they were asking as a basis for what I asked the Great White Brotherhood to talk about. So I'm going to ask some questions and then read you their answers. Okay, if I need to explain further, I will, but we'll see how we get on. Okay, Antarctica. The first question is this: is Antarctica being used as a spaceport to send UFOs into space? And the answer is, there is indeed a part of Antarctica that has large vents between the surface and constructions deep in the ice that are used to store space vessels. Some of these vessels are manufactured by Earth humans and some by what you refer to as aliens. Now, the ones manufactured by Earth humans, they didn't enlarge on, but I know that the Germans, towards the end of the Second World War, the so-called Nazis, they had developed flying saucer technology. So whether it's those flying saucers that they're talking about or more recent ones developed by the Americans, I'm not too sure. But there's both Earth human vessels down there and alien ones. Next question. Do you know about the 3 UFOs under the ice, 1 some miles long and 2 smaller ones? And then there's more questions that I asked. Is it true, and what is their purpose? Are there beings in stasis within them? And stasis, if you don't know, means in a state of suspended animation. Are they pre-adamites, and what are pre-adamites? And the answer is this: there are vessels of alien origin buried deep in the ice. We cannot confirm their size, but do not think that they are as large as you mentioned. The problem of describing the ship's origins is because aliens live in the astral realms and thus cannot be given a geographic location, which I've mentioned in a previous video. The beings that might be aboard these craft would be robots. They are in what is called stasis, quite simply because they've been switched off to preserve their power source. We are not sure that humans have the technology to animate them again. The pre-adamites, this is a description applied to mankind that existed before a catastrophe many hundreds of thousands of years ago destroyed much of the earth and its various populations. This race did not come from any planet, but were introduced by the directors of life in a way that we will not attempt to describe now. Suffice to say that this early race of humans were introduced, multiplied, and reached a certain level of technical sophistication before being virtually eliminated by a catastrophe provoked by man's warlike tendencies, which in turn provoked global problems. The result was what you refer to as an extinction level event. So from that I understand that these people had developed sufficiently, a long time ago, had developed sufficiently to create terrible weapons which they used and blew up the planet, which caused an earth shift and all that sort of thing, and wiped everybody out, or virtually wiped everybody out, and we had to all start again. Question: is there a supergate, a stargate in Antarctica? And can it transport people from one place to the end of our galaxy? And the answer is yes and no. The pyramids, which is what the person was referring to, is merely a broadcast homing signal, so plays no part in projecting spacecraft anywhere. From a distant place, this homing signal can be detected and the craft jumps from the spot that they are to Earth if they are using the technique we described in a previous message. And if you saw the one that I talked about before, about the pyramids, I mentioned that the pyramids were sending signals out into space, and that's what they were there for. And there is, I believe, in Antarctica, a pyramid that's been recently discovered. Are there or were there scrolls under the ice, a library? Did the Ankar take them? Now, the Ankar is a race of beings very much like us humans, an offshoot of humanity, that live in the huge caverns under the ice, under the surface of the planet Earth, rather as the reptilians do, and certain other races. But this particular race are called Ankar, and they're far in advance of us, but they're basically humans like us. The answer is, the scrolls mentioned were not as described. They would resemble the hard disks that are used in some computers. There are no moving parts, but are storage mechanisms. I can't remember the name of that they put to these modern hard disks that have no moving parts. It just records stuff. They were these computer things were recuperated by the Ankar as a precaution. They contained much information about technology that it would be better that man did not have at the moment. And from that I understood that they contained a lot of information about advanced technology that could be used by warlike humans to create even more bombs and things. And we could do without that. So that's why they took them. Question: are there any genetic experiment entities under the ice? And by that, I think the question was, are there any strange-looking monsters and things, these weird creatures that result of genetic experiments? And the answer is, we cannot confirm that there were genetic experiments being conducted in Antarctica. There was life all over the planet, and most of it was eliminated by that event. So, no doubt, genetic experiments were being conducted just as they are today, but not necessarily in Antarctica. And with that, I'm going to have a quick drink of water, please. Thank you. Now, then they went on to give a statement. The Great White Brotherhood. We wish you to understand that planet Earth was populated just as it is today. However, when the dust settled after this cataclysmic event, the geography of Earth was totally altered. In fact, the technology that people associate with Antarctica, with cold and ice, did not apply to that area at all. Antarctica was in a temperate zone, much as where Java is situated today. So what that means is there was, wherever and what we call Antarctica today, wherever it actually was at the time, there was this cataclysmic event, and it caused an earth shift, and Antarctica, what we call Antarctica, finished up in a place where we would consider Java to be today. The event that caused another shift that resulted in the continent that you call Antarctica to be covered in ice came much later. So there was a second catastrophic event that finally moved the planet once again and made Antarctica to be down at the bottom, covered in ice. However, as virtually all the world's population had been eliminated, the remains stayed untouched for a long period of time. The only visitors to Earth were certain alien groups, but all life being extinct, they had little interest in planet Earth. Eventually, the few survivors, helped by the directors of life, started to repopulate the Earth again, only to suffer yet another cataclysm later. That's the second one I just mentioned. This second event placed the continent of Antarctica in its present position. We will discuss this second event at a later date. Now, the question is what has been discovered under the ice Atlantis? The question cannot really be answered because Atlantis was not limited to one small island. Atlantean people and technology were spread throughout the planet, much as most advanced countries now have spread their interests far beyond their original homeland. So bits of Atlantis were spread all around the world. What is under the ice may contain some Atlantean influence, but most of it dates from a much earlier time. The rest of that civilization has been destroyed by time outside of Antarctica. That early civilization which was spread over the Earth, time has destroyed any evidence of it. But because of the freezing effect of the ice, what is down at Antarctica has been preserved. Okay, it says, it is only the deep freeze effect that has preserved this small amount of a previously, to us, advanced civilization. Lastly, we wish to say that scientists will puzzle for many years the different technology they are finding. Some of it is what you call pre-adamite, which is pre-500,000 years old. Some of it might come from the Atlantean times and culture. Some of it might be alien in nature. And lastly, some of it might come from more recent civilizations that have been interested in that continent since its discovery. I think, amongst other things, they're talking about the Nazis that went down there, and I believe also the reptilians set up home down there at one stage. So this mixture of cultures and technologies will give scientists something to think about for a long time into the future. However, this experience will open scientists' minds to the value of telepathy and what is referred to as remote viewing, which is just a way of reaching out with the auras, thus enabling them to trawl back in time, to discover the truth about planet Earth and its different peoples. So there is always a silver lining to any problem. And that's the end of it. Okay. Now, I'm going to leave it at that. You may have understood it or you may not, but it's obviously a lot more complicated than it sounds with all the various cataclysmic events and the earth shifts and all the rest of it. But there's obviously also a great deal of technology coming from various civilizations, some of them Earth civilizations, some of them alien civilizations. And we'll see what they finally let us see. Okay? So I thank you very much for listening to me. And in a few days' time, I hope to soldier on with that list of subjects that I gave you, of which this is one. Okay? Thank you very much for listening to me. I'll speak to you again soon. Bye.